Thank you for having me, actually. I'm very excited to be here with you, and especially on this topic. I am really excited about this.
Yes, it's a cool topic, and you have some background, or you're getting into some background on it, right?
Yeah, I'm starting actually now. I've submitted my proposal for my doctorate, but it touches base on this. It touches the topic of AI, but I am doing my dissertation on thought recognition technology and how it impacts cognitive freedom. So this is the basis of it. AI is the beginning of it, the foundation of how thought recognition technology came to be. So yeah, I'm starting now with the research. So I don't know how much input I'll have, but whatever I can do.
So I have a weird story, okay? Because I was using ChatGPT this is a month ago probably.
Yeah.
And I kind of explained to it this project that I'm working on, church project thing, whatever. And I just explained it to it and I said, oh, can you do this for me or whatever? Put it in bullet point, whatever it is,
Yeah.
And then it did what I wanted it to do. And then at the end of it, it said, I hope your project goes well. I'll pray for you. And I was so backed up.
Yeah, of course.
I was so backed up because I was like, what the heck? And then all of a sudden, all these thoughts are coming into your brain what the heck is AI that it says that it can pray? Obviously, it's not.
Sure.
Right? But it's trying to mimic that.
Exactly.
And it's selling itself off to the user as if it's a person.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the creepy thing about it. Now, it did get me thinking about artificial intelligence versus real intelligence. And how do we make the distinction between these?
Yeah, I mean, with certain things when it comes to especially ChatGPT, I was right when it first started out, I was still in Italy. So it came out, and then at that time it was very exclusive. You have to sign up, and then you get on a wait list, and if they have enough space to add you as a user. So I signed up for it. I was like, okay, everybody's talking about it. It was all over the news. So I signed up for it, and I got the same. I was finally maybe a week later or 10 days later, I got an acceptance congratulations, you've been accepted to basically use ChatGPT. And I went on there and just started looking at things. But you're right, a lot of it is, what ends up happening is depending on how many questions or the type of things that you want set up, it will start sort of forming itself or conforming itself to your way of thought or the way that you would like a page structured and so on. And even things, I would just put in random things like a homily, saying, hey, this Sunday's gospel reading is this. And it would basically spit out this full-on, talk about this, relate to people about their struggles in life. And you could use this example in your homily. And it is scary because, like you said, it is trying to mimic human sort of emotion, human, even in a way, human feeling, how a human would respond to you in saying good luck or good job or wishing you luck. So yeah, it can be, and I can understand because I don't want to go too much into it because I know we do have a lot of other things to talk about, but there are places now and people who are making their own sort of AI bots that are their companions or their partners or secretaries. And it's gone even into the other sphere of companionship. Yeah. Somebody who's there. And I'm sure you've seen that, where somebody who I can go to this person and talk to them and they give me responses, and it sort of emits this sort of fabricated emotion, especially for people who are more homebodies or people who don't like leaving or don't like interactions because of some sort of hurt or some sort of part of their life experiences. Yeah,
and that gets to, I think, to the question of whether or not, well, we obviously can't attribute personhood to an AI bot or a robot or something like that, right? And what makes a person is that he's created in God's image and so many other things, marked by real human intelligence.
Sure.
Right? The ability to rationalize and to participate in God's act of creation by creating ourselves, by creating, babies, whether it's in marriage or by recreating whole scenes through movies or stories, by creating universes in let's say Lord of the Rings or something like that. Creativity, right? But AI, as far as I understand it, and I don't understand it too well.
Sure.
As far as I understand it, it just does a really, really excellent job at mimicking, at gathering information and spitting it out really quickly and effectively, but doing so by mimicking only, but not really creativity. So I've never used AI for a homily because it can't do that, And I think a homily is a lot more about a father speaking to his children,
Of course.
Than it is just passing along. Like, it's not a catechism,
Sure.
But I sent it my dissertation. I finished my dissertation, that's done, right?
Yeah.
But just out of curiosity, I sent it my dissertation. Mind you, that took me 4 years to write, okay?
Yeah.
For a doctoral degree in theology, okay? And it's got all these sources, and I spent so much time on this thing. I sent it I think it was a PDF, and I said, just grade it. Give me. If you're a university dean or something,
sure,
grade my dissertation. And within 10 seconds, it responds, okay, with a grade. It responds with the reason for the grade, its strengths, its weaknesses, quoting the thing. It was crazy.
So what grade did you get?
I got a 92.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Not bad.
Not bad, yeah.
AI is a tough judge.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was able to do all that so quickly. So it's great at like data analysis,
of course,
and it's as a language model and all these things. But because it's so good at language, and human beings are set apart from the rest of creation because of the ability to, transmit ideas into sounds which become a language intelligible by other people.
Yeah.
Right? Language is kind of what makes us different than the rest of the animal kingdom and the rest of creation.
Yeah.
Because it does that so well, it does mimic the human person very strongly and can pass itself off as a companion,
yeah,
or as you said, a fabricated emotion.
Yeah.
And I think that's somebody that's in a vulnerable position in terms of relationships or going through a lot of loneliness or something, that can be a kind of dangerous spot for them to be in.
I mean, in terms of AI, when you're speaking about intelligence, and I want to go back to the homily part, with AI, it's sort of just a functionality. Intelligence for it is functional. Mm-hmm. It's seen as something that is functional. It needs to give certain things. But when it comes to intelligence to humans, to a human being, that intelligence is relied upon the person's whole entirety, right? When I have something of some sort of intelligence, it's based upon my past experiences, my emotions, my conscience, and my environment as well. I take into consideration my environment. You brought up the homilies, and I like that because when I did that, because I was curious, and I put in multiple different parables or different like gospel readings, and it can give you data. Mm-hmm. It can give you words, but it cannot give you that connection, as you said, a father to his children. And when you see that inside of a church, even when you're giving a homily or you're giving some sort of reflection on a gospel reading, when you're actually sitting there in front of someone, and or let's say, for example, celebrating the liturgy, and you're there giving the homily, you're also there processing how the people in front of you are understanding what you're saying. Sometimes you could be lost in your own thought and not realize, like somebody might be lost or not understanding the connection, where you can even look out into the congregation and to the parishioners and see and go from your own personal experiences with that person, right? Mm-hmm. You say, okay, I know that this person had this issue or this problem, and this is a great gospel to reflect upon that problem. Not that we tailor our homilies specifically to one person, but sometimes that does help, right? Because you know your congregation, you know your people. These are your children. They are there. You serve them day in and day out. They are there receiving the sacraments from you. And you give them your own experiences. You give them your ears. You're hearing them. You give them your heart. You love them. And so you know what it is that they might need. And not all the time, obviously, but there is that connection that cannot be given by AI, for sure.
It can't be given by AI. And sometimes you look at the church while you're preaching, and like you said, the reactions that you're getting from the people it's like immediate live feedback.
Yeah.
So like, is it working? Is it not working?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you see people nodding off.
Yeah.
Okay, you got to change gears here.
Yeah.
Or I love the people that like nod in the church, like, oh yeah,
I love those people, man.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, not because they're agreeing with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just love them because like, hey, I'm getting some sort of reaction out of them, because there's some people are just like this the whole time.
Yes, yeah.
And a lot of those people, by the way, I'm sure you've experienced this. A lot of those people are just like blank stare. There's no emotion coming out. They'll come up after Mass, I really like this homily because you touched on this. And I was like, oh, I thought you were in a whole nother world. Like, I didn't even think you were there.
Yeah, exactly. I thought you were thinking about your grocery list.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely.
And what that says about human intelligence, I think, as opposed to like, artificial intelligence, is that artificial intelligence is pure data. It's just like factual things, and it can mimic a kind of weaving in of human emotions within the response that it's going to give to you, but it doesn't have it at all, of course, because it's not a person, it's not a real thing. It's just a computer generating facts and data for you, right? And analysis. But it says something about human intelligence, I think, which is different, which is within human intelligence, it's not a pure rational thing. Human intelligence is not a purely rational thing. I think that there's a lot more that comes into human intelligence than just analysis, judgment, and so on, right? Just like gathering facts and analyzing them perfectly well. The human mind incorporates much more than just seeking data, analyzing it well, and making conclusions off of it.
Yeah.
So it's not just like this pure scientific reality. There's
or statistical.
Exactly. Yeah.
Definitely, because with AI, I mean, and you can go into many different topics with it, but you're right. Like AI is just it takes data, and it's really good at this. Like you said, you put in a whole dissertation that you worked 4 years, blood, sweat, and tears into it, sleepless nights, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And it takes it can able to compute it and give it the statistics that you want it, because you set it the parameters for it. I want you to give me a grade based upon this as a theologian or as a professor in a university. Look for these types of points and give me your analysis at the end of it. And that's it. It'll spit it out. It's really good at that. And it can be really even good for, and there's been talks about like, how can we use this in healthcare? How is this going to impact healthcare or social justice or work? And what ends up happening is we notice that in certain things, it can be very helpful, maybe for engineering, maybe for even for healthcare, being able to give different statistical outputs about what can and how successful maybe a surgery might be or a procedure might be. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. There is nothing else there that connects it to you. It sort of stands outside of the world and outside of your environment and just judges basically. You use judges, and I love that word because it really just judges specifically on empirical data, like statistics, empirical data, and that is it. There is nothing when you are, let's say, a doctor standing there and you have a patient that you're dealing with who has a certain issue, and you're like, okay, there are these two different maybe solutions. This one has a 50% success rate, and this one has a 60%, and you don't know which one to use or what to go with. And as a doctor, as a computer, as an AI, it says, okay, 60%, that's the one you go with, and that's it. It's done. End of story. But when you're a doctor standing there and you know what this person has gone through before, the emotion that they're going through at this current moment, the family that's surrounding them, what they have, what they don't have in terms of emotion, in terms of their spiritual well-being, how they are and where they are in their life, or even when we come to priesthood. And I don't want to keep harping on priesthood or religious life because obviously AI is impacting a bunch of stuff and all the different occupations and vocations of the world. But it's different. It might help maybe an engineer design a bridge, and maybe he has a weakness somewhere, and he at that moment, or maybe for lack of formation or lack of information, might not be able to figure out a specific solution. It might be able to give him or her multiple avenues of a solution. And so, okay, but the human engineer still has to go in and say, okay, how would this work? Because will this impact the environment in a different way? Will this impact that rural city or that town around there? Will this impact the sound for the families that live around it? And how is that going to impact the animals that are there, right? Because a human person might, even if you program AI to be able to take those things into consideration, the question is, can it actually truly fully take in its full environment?
Yeah, because part of that full environment, which AI simply can't have and will never have, is empathy.
Yes.
Empathy is a particularly human trait.
Yes.
Right? Because we can actually feel what somebody else is feeling themselves, right? This ability for connectivity among human beings, right? That we have, that a robot, no matter how smart it is or how rational, not rational, but how intelligent supposedly it is, it's never going to have that. And that's part of our process of making a judgment on a thing. Empathy is a part of that, you know?
Yeah.
You know, in healthcare, for example, I guess an AI bot or whatever will be able to make the best decision on a purely biological, physical, material level, but it doesn't know the person. You know the person. And so you can take all that data, and I think that's the benefit of AI, is that it's going to really amplify how much data we'll have and how much we'll have access to. That's great. It'll just give us more information and more in-depth information that maybe we wouldn't have access to or easy access to. But then we make the decision because we're the ones that have empathy. We're the ones that know one another, not just know about one another. Maybe AI will know a lot about a lot of things and a lot about a lot of people, but it's not going to know anybody.
It doesn't know love.
No.
Right? It doesn't know compassion. It doesn't know service. It doesn't know sacrifice. All these things that are made up of who a human person is, where when I truly love someone, I am willing to put my life down for them, right? I'm willing to give my life up for that person. I am willing to sacrifice for that person. I have compassion. I have love inside of me, true love and true compassion, right? Where I can understand what that person might be going through. I can at least have a semblance of something, even if I'm not personally going through that medical emergency, even though I might not be going through that moral dilemma myself or have never been through that moral dilemma, but I can still at least understand where that person is coming from.
And that's not a rational thing. That's something beyond rationality.
Correct.
Love, like true love, like what you're saying, of self-sacrificial love for the good of the other at the expense of myself,
Correct.
is not a rational thing to do.
No.
If we're just thinking pure rationality, right? But we're not pure rational being. And that's really what sets us apart from an artificial intelligence versus human intelligence. That part of human intelligence, human rationality, weaved into that intrinsically is the ability to love.
Yeah, I mean, and another part of that is also moral responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? There's that sort of understanding that I have a duty and obligation to certain moral standards and that moral responsibility of, okay, doing what's right or wrong, can I, for example, I mean, I hate to put this out there right now and make this like a sad thing, but sacrificing one for the whole or sacrificing the whole for the one. And for example, AI might be, according to statistics, you could save these 10 people, but one person has to die. One person dies. Statistics, numbers say 1 is less than 10, 10 is greater than 1, save the 10. But can you truly take a life? Morally speaking, can you truly end a life because of one thing? And we can, obviously, this goes into many things, you know, healthcare and beginning of life issues, end of life issues. And, oh, this person is towards the end of his life. He's 60, 70, 80 years old. He's on machines. We could pull the plug. AI would tell you, pull the plug. Right? Because this person is done. This person is a vegetable in a way and is in a vegetative state. So we're burning or using resources on this person that is not in one way or another contributing to society. What has AI just done? And we've already seen this even before AI anyways, where now a human person is just based on a number, is based on what can you provide to the whole. Now, yes, everything we should do for the whole good of everybody. But that doesn't mean if I can no longer contribute in that way that I am less valuable than the person who is contributing 10 times more, even a little bit more. There's a difference there, right? And we have that sort of moral obligation, moral responsibility to care, that compassion that we have for others, to know that even somebody who might be in a vegetative state at that moment doesn't mean that that person is no longer a human being, doesn't mean that that person no longer has a soul.
Yeah.
That's something that differentiates us big time. And obviously there's many differentiations, but that soul.
Yeah, right, exactly. So a lot of people are afraid of artificial intelligence, like, you know, they have these like dystopian images in their mind about how things are going to go and that robots are going to take over the world. I'm not afraid of that at all, because I know that this thing is just mimicking right?
Sure.
And anyways, I think that human beings will be able to control this, so that it doesn't get out of control or anything like that. I'm very actually like excited about a lot of things that AI will be able to do for society. I think it'll be helpful in many, many, many ways. The thing that I'm personally most afraid about when it comes to artificial intelligence is that we're going to become very complacent. Human beings, we can tend to be lazy and just kind of allow something else or somebody else to do our work for us while we relax and just, essentially give into all of our pleasures and become complacent, right? So that we just pass on all of our duties to a robot and an AI machine that can do it better than we can anyways, while we're just sitting on the couch watching movies and eating whatever we want to eat, I'm more worried about complacency and us becoming essentially lazy and reducing our humanity than I am about an AI bot becoming a robot that's going to take over the world, right? I'm less worried about artificial intelligence becoming human-like and then taking over than I am about human beings becoming essentially artificial.
You have a lot more hope than I do, I think. I agree with what you're saying in terms of, for sure, the complacency, 100%.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, have you ever seen WALL-E? That cartoon.
Oh, no, I haven't
that cartoon movie.
The movie?
Yeah, there's like a little robot square.
That's the one that I was talking to one of the monks about, actually.
Oh,
I've seen it. Yeah.
And then you see everybody's like in those, chairs that hover, and everything's just in a screen in front of them, and that's all they see. And everything's done through there. They think of something, they can order it right there. They think of, they're hungry, they want to eat, they think of something, and then it comes up in the thing, buy this, and $4.99 and $5 and all that stuff. And and then they want to communicate with somebody, it's through the telecom. And what's funny is that, the cameras, I mean, obviously I know it's a cartoon, but this camera is like sort of, you see everybody just sitting in chairs that hover around and go and come, but it's like they're sitting right next to each other, but they're talking to each other, but through the screen to each other.
Yeah.
And so for sure, it can get, not maybe, we've heard of stories and we know of people who that's the only way, a form of communication, which is sad, definitely. Because we are social animals, right? We are meant to interact. We are meant to love each other. And even God, when he created the world, said the only day that he didn't say this, it wasn't good until he created a partner, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Everybody else had a partner except Adam. Mm-hmm. And until it was Eve, then that was good, because there is that social being. But to go back to the point of AI not taking over, I believe the more personally, and obviously only time will tell, but I believe personally that the more we allow AI to enter the different aspects of our lives and of our world, of our environment, of our communities, I think the more, because of our complacency, will allow, quote unquote, freedom, open up the parameters or widen the parameters of what AI can do. And so, okay, based upon my decisions in the past about certain things, follow through with those, and this problem, solve it in that same way. Because it continues to sort of learn based off of our inputs and our responses back to it. Because if you go on there and you type in something, I know we're speaking of ChatGPT, but there's other things. If you go in there and you put something and then you go again and you put something else, it starts realizing what it is that you're actually looking for, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who's always looking for bullet point answers to a certain thing, or somebody who's always looking for a summary of this document or this book, is going to start realizing this person, all they care about is give me the meat and I'm out of here. Like, I don't want to know about anything else that's going on. I think the more we do that, because as we said earlier, it's based specifically on statistics and more of like input of statistical or empirical data, I believe at a certain point, if we allow it to, it can get to a point where it starts making decisions based on statistics. 1 is worth less than 10.
And this is going to be interesting how it plays out, to be honest with you. Like Pope Leo, I'm interested in seeing what he's going to do with this. Yeah. It looks like he's marking, this is one of the hallmarks of his papacy.
Yeah.
It's going to be, because he said he took the name Leo because Leo the 13th wrote Rerum Novarum. That was during the Industrial Revolution. There had a lot of big social upheavals and changes and what that did to the family and many other aspects of society. He's following in his footsteps because he sees another kind of revolution, an AI revolution, right? So it seems like he is setting his pontificate to address that issue. And I'm interested in seeing what he's going to do with that. He seems like a great pope, so I'm hopeful that he'll do well. But the Pope is a religious voice, a voice for Christ in the world.
Yeah.
And not everybody's Christian. A
Yeah.
moral voice in the world, and not everybody's moral.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
So,
Or have a different spectrum for what morality is.
yeah, or have a different spectrum of what morality is. Exactly. You know, not everybody wants to play fair game.
Sure.
So I'm interested in seeing how that's going to play out. Yeah. How do you think, how can we as like priests, or how can the church, or how can the people of God use AI, you think, for the church's mission?
I think it's already being used a lot, actually. And like we said, it's not I don't want like this show to end and then everybody's like, oh, AI is bad and it's a horrible thing. No, not at all. I think there is, and there have been applications, and there is, and there will be applications where AI is going to be very useful, and already has been. In terms of just, I mean, if we look at something as simple as manuscripts, right? Some manuscripts are sort of cut off, burnt, lost, whatever it might be. And even, I mean, you went to Iraq, right? You went to the monastery that they had over there, the center. We basically have, I think, like 3,000 manuscripts in the church that sort of were just being stored this whole time. And they wanted to digitize them so more people can have access to them. Well, you open up one of these manuscripts and they're very frail and very fragile. And so over centuries, they've been there, and they're trying to scan them so that they can be digitized and more people can have them. Well, the types of machines that they're using in the scanners, with the programs that are connected with the computer, using certain AI programs, they're able to sort of more clearly assume to a certain percentage, like 90%, 80% in some cases, maybe 50% in some cases, what the rest of it might have said based upon what has been done before. Now, obviously, that could be bad in a certain way, especially if it starts assuming things that might not be there because of whatever the reason might be. But in a lot of cases, that's good. It's able to digitize and we are able to have more access to those things. It can also help with some things, maybe as for youth groups, right? If you can't think of an idea, how can I think of an idea that, because we're not all knowing, right? And so there's many things that many books that we haven't read, or many articles that we haven't looked at. If I have a youth group or for like young kids, and I want to do maybe an activity for them, and I've used it for this. I mean, although I haven't had a youth group in a while, but just being able to say, like, what activity would you put with this? I'm going to speak about this, and I want to come up with some activity, but I can't think of anything. It could generate 3-4 different activities. You're like, oh, you know what, this might be good, and then you could take that and twist to whatever you need it to, right? Maybe specifically to a certain group that you're dealing with of youth, maybe like ages 10 to 12. Like, this activity might not work for them. So in those cases, I think it can help. It can do good for sure. It can help with translations even.
Yeah, so I mean, especially those manuscripts.
Exactly, yeah.
It can be a tool like any other tool to help us do the things that we're already doing, and just help us do it, in a sense, quicker and more efficiently, so that we can also, this. So much of our vocation is preparing like a youth group, preparing a Bible study, preparing all these things. And so much of it is not just like the thought preparing, like I'm thinking about what I'm going to say in my Bible study. I'm analyzing this catechism paragraph or this Bible verse or this story or whatever. Not that kind of stuff. I actually avoid as much as possible using AI for any of that, because I don't want to freeze my brain.
Exactly.
And I want to be the one thinking, and I want this thing to just like be essentially my servant.
Yeah.
Okay. to say like, okay, I have all this information, just organize it for me.
Yes.
That's so much time saved.
Definitely.
It's incredible.
Definitely.
100%
I agree with you. One thing to go back to what you're saying about, like, you want to continue to be able to use your brain, and you want to continue to be able to, you want to go through the thought process, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what we do also, and not just as priests or religious, I think a lot of what we do as people of God, as the children of God, is sometimes we got to struggle, right? Sometimes we have to go through it to be able to understand that, okay, I need to go through the struggle to come out at the other end with something, right? Because with struggle, I can turn to prayer, I can turn to meditation, I can turn to a reflection, a conversation with God. While if I see no struggle, I see no issues, just put it in there, generate something for me and go move forward. Where's the time for reflection? Where's the time for prayer? Where's the time for scripture? Right? Where's the time in solitude with God in that communication, hearing him, listening to what he has to tell me. I think that in itself, sometimes even when I go back to healthcare, I keep going back to this, I'm sorry, but even when we have somebody who's struggling in health, right? And we say, why God, why is this happening to somebody I care about, or to me even? Sometimes we just see as suffering as something evil, as something bad. But look at the suffering of Christ, right? Suffering of Christ brought salvation upon all of humanity. Sometimes suffering is good for us, right? Informing who we are and being able to understand and being able to have empathy and compassion. That's what you spoke about for others when they might be going through something.
Yeah, and then and with that, like all of these technologies and the ones that we currently have and whatever will be opened up in the future, and it looks like it's just gonna really start expanding quickly now. Whatever is going to be opening up as far as technology should serve humanity.
Yes.
And it should serve humanity's vocation, which is to glorify God.
Exactly.
Right. And so last night, just funny story. Last night, it was late. I was going to go to bed and I was like, let me just try this for fun,
Yeah.
I went on ChatGPT and I said, debate me as if you're a Protestant scholar. And it said, okay, fine. And then I made a claim. I said, the claim is Marian devotion is necessary for a full Christian life.
Okay.
And then we had this like half an hour debate. It was fun. But that I was doing that because I'm like, okay, let me sharpen my apologetic skills on this one topic.
Sure.
Because this thing is going to do great as far as, being a Protestant debating me.
Sure.
And it's going to be quick, right?
Exactly.
And that was awesome. Yeah. I actually had a lot of fun doing that.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Just be careful how far you go, right? Maybe take one of the brothers and start debating.
Yeah, that's right.
Every once in a while, take a little break from the computer.
Debate like a human being.
Yeah. Or you can read emotions, see the eyes, right? The eyes tell a full story.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I do use it even sometimes just to freshen up on certain things. Like I know I read this book and whatever it might be, and I remember there was a point in there that it was telling a story, or it tried to make a point, and it said it so eloquently. The author said it so beautifully because they truly painted a picture, right? And I'm trying to remember, what did that say? And so you go in there, you type it in, this book, this author, there's somewhere in the book, it talks about this topic. And then can you pull up what that story was or what that picture that was, something, and then it'll say, are you looking for this, or this? And you're like, oh, that's it right there. Right, so definitely more efficient than me going and trying to, first of all, find the book.
Yeah.
For me right now, everything's in boxes anyways.
Yeah.
But trying to find the book and then trying to go through the whole book and trying to find out where it was exactly. I know what the book was talking about, but that specific thing maybe that I'm trying to make a point of it. So yeah, definitely. I mean, it really is useful.
Yeah, it's useful. And then for things like, have you created any images on any of this stuff?
No images, actually. Well, no, I created posts for like a youth group gathering, or like flyer. Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I created an image. I don't remember exactly what it was. It was create an image of Mary, the seat of wisdom, right? And I gave it some parameters, like, okay, I want to make it kind of medieval, kind of like this. You use Byzantine colors, that kind of thing. I love the image. It's a great image.
Yeah.
But it does it so fast, and it can do so many of them, and you can edit it to oblivion, basically, that it kind of just feels too easy or something. I don't know. I like the product.
Yes.
Like the image is beautiful.
Definitely.
But the process seems like cheating.
Yeah. I mean, it goes to, I guess, like you said, the end result.
Yeah.
Beautiful, great, amazing. It's so nice and beautiful. But then we go into that, and then a human drawn icon or somebody who drew something, because I think there is obviously for sure a difference, because you're right. It generates it really quickly, but can we say that is the same beauty in that photo or that painting as a human created, made painting or piece of art? I personally think no. I don't think they're the same type of beauty. It might be beauty in the sense that, okay, this is beautiful, but in art, it's a whole nother language. I mean, we're speaking about a whole nother language, right? Because in art, the artist themselves is putting part of who they are into that piece of art. Maybe their struggles, maybe their love, maybe their compassion, maybe their empathy, whatever other type of emotion, they're putting that in that piece of art. it goes into that while a generated image or drawn out image, just that alone being able to, it generates it quickly. It's nice, but what is it actually giving you? What are you actually seeing inside of that piece of art?
When you eat, the end result of eating is so that you fill yourself up, you have your nutrients, for energy and just sustenance, things like that, right? The basic necessity of life. But it's actually more than that. For a human being, for an animal to eat, that's true. They need to eat only so that they can sustain their body, so they can go on to survive and continue, right, in life. But a human being must do that, but more. When we eat as human beings, we're not just sustaining ourselves biologically, we're also communing with one another. And so when we eat together, we're not just filling our stomachs and receiving the nutrients that we need, we're actually together, right? And there's a communion among human beings. There's a connection, there's a relationship that's being formed and developing. There's a sharing of life that's happening when we eat together, and as a family, at the table together, go out to dinner together, whatever it is, right? And the food takes second place. Like it becomes the means by which human beings connect with one another, but it's not the main focus. It's like that with this thing. If we eat in such a way where we're just filling ourselves or just for the sake of pleasure, right, then we do reduce this act from communion with other human beings and an act of love and fellowship. We reduce that to just base bodily pleasure, just the effect of it, just the nutrients, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
It becomes this very earthy, animalistic thing that we're doing strictly. I'm comparing that with this AI thing because you can generate an image and it's a beautiful image and you get the product and it's really nice and everything like that, but you're missing the whole human element. And I've generated these images. And, I'm telling you, I use them sometimes for whatever reason, but there is a serious deficiency there, which is the human element that you were talking about. An artist goes in and he paints something, and what's included in the painting is himself, right? His memory, in a sense, his life experience, his relationship with God, his relationship with other people, his relationship with the thing that he's painting, right? All that is included in his product. It's not just this base thing that you get, this product at the end. It's the product, which is the effect of a whole activity of a human being.
Yeah, definitely. Within that piece of art, within even poetry, right? We could take this to other forms of art, or poetry, or writing a book, or there is a lot of who that person is in that, and who we are is a reflection of God, right? And who we are is showing within our life that love that we have for God, and reflecting that love that God has shown us to be reflected upon others. And when an artist goes in and goes to draw something to maybe to glorify God, or to just show beauty of the world, or show pain, you're drawing something, or you're painting something, or you're creating something that is a reflection of one who, in a way, seeks God, right? And through beauty, we seek that. And through our emotions, life experiences, we are seeking something greater. And with an AI-generated book, poem, painting, that's all it is. Going back to your food, it's just. This is why I'm not a big fan of power bars. You see everybody like, oh, forget about the meal. You don't have time for the meal. Just take power bar. Well, the meal is not just the meal. Yes, we need it for sustenance. We need it for nutrients. We need it to stay alive, and to satisfy our craving or what it might be. But that's not the only thing. There is that communion, right? That communion with another person. Take this, all of you, right? And eat of it. Not take this you and eat of it you, right? Take this, all of you. And sure, in that context, he was standing amongst his apostles, disciples, but it is meant to be shared in a communion. And so with art, it's meant to, what's the point of art if I draw it and I just leave it there, right? It's meant to be seen. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be appreciated or criticized, positively or negatively. It is meant to be experienced by others as well. And so when in the same way, because now when I go see it, I look at it differently, right? I look at it from a different perspective, try to see what is it that Picasso and all the others that they painted, they're no longer alive, but we look at it and we say, oh, I think he was trying to depict this, or you start thinking, but you can't do that with an AI generated image, right? Or a piece of art. You can't do that. And I don't even know if I would call it art, to be honest with you. Can we call it art? I don't know.
That's a very good question. Can we call it art? I don't know the answer to that question either. You know, what's missing for sure, and can we call it artificial art? Yeah. What's missing in AI art is that's essential to the human, traditional art, is that the human soul is involved, right? That's the particularized human element in there. And kind of like what you were saying earlier, what I was saying earlier, there's much that goes in to an art piece when a human being is doing it with his own hands. That's coming from his mind.
Yeah.
That's participating in God's own act of creation. I like to think of, actually, our liturgy thinks of one of the images that it uses for the creation of the world is God is this painter that's painting the world into existence, right? And so when we do art, when we tell a story, when we write a story, when we're performing or doing any of these things, we're partaking in God's own act of creation. Our creativity is a sharing in God's creativity. But AI art, is, for sure, it's not included in there. And that's not to say that it's not pretty. It's very pretty and very useful for many things. But certainly it's not the same thing. It doesn't have the same oomph to it.
It doesn't have, I might be wrong for saying, I don't know if you would agree, but it doesn't have the imperfections that
I like that
human art has, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too perfect.
Yeah.
Too on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
We are imperfect. We are imperfect. And so our art, or whatever it might be, even our writing, our thoughts, they might, and they are a lot of times imperfect. And so we can't calculate or account for every single possible scenario, but that's what makes us who we are. That's what makes us humans, that part of who makes us human, that we are imperfect, seeking perfection to God, through God, but we are imperfect. So it is only, I feel like it's only right that what we have might and is not perfect.
Yeah, and the imperfection, you say we're imperfect and we're seeking perfection in God, for sure.
Sure.
And that's the struggle of life, right? And the struggle is very valuable.
Yeah.
And it makes for an extraordinary life.
Yeah.
Without the struggle, or if it's too perfect, essentially what I'm a little bit afraid of is that AI will produce such perfect things all the time and it's just handed to us without any effort or work or struggle on our part. What will that do to somebody that grows up in an environment like that? That will be unsatisfied with a human product because of the imperfection that's there, and then doesn't appreciate the work, the effort, the experience that's behind it because he prefers the ease and the flawlessness of something AI generated, right?
Yeah, that's a great question, honestly, because, and I don't know if there's one specific answer for sure, but what I would say is it's good. It is, honestly, it has its goods, but it also has its bad. There are the things that we can use it to help further our education, to help further our understanding, but it also has its limits. And even if it doesn't, we need to know that we have to limit our use of it, because to go back to one of the beginning points that you talked about, complacency, that I am made in the image of God. I am made in the image of God with who I am through my passions, with who I am through my experiences, with who I am through my tribulations, my ups and downs in life. And I am going to go through struggles. And I am going to go through things, create things that are imperfect, do things that are imperfect. But that is the point of me learning. And that's what that differentiates between a little bit of the intellect of AI and my personal human intellect, where it comes from knowledge, from experiences, from tribulations, and being able to use that to my benefit, and understanding that a certain amount of struggle is okay. Because I would warn, and I would take heed at least to the point that, so it doesn't make me lazy, and being careful of if I have a book report, I should probably read the book. Okay,
I'm not going to assign papers to my.
Yeah.
I teach at I teach theology and
Yeah.
stuff, right? At a college, a university. And I'm not going to assign papers anymore.
Yeah.
Just you don't know.
It's not. I mean, obviously now there are other AIs that you can input that information into the AI, into this other program that's also run by AI, and what it does is it tells you if what was generated is AI or not.
Yeah.
So even like the AI that generates your prompt, like right now, if you take any sort of paper or something, or any prompt and you say, write me a 10-page paper on this thing, you can take that 10-page paper and put it back into the same AI and say, hey, is this AI generated? And it will tell you, yes, it is, or no, it's not, or this what. Obviously, it'll tell you yes, it is. So it can like sort of self-evaluate what it is. But you could say make it less AI, but that's not the point. At this point, I can just go through, type in Huckleberry Finn. I can type in Charlotte's Web, whatever book I'm reading, or even more advanced, even in universities and my doctoral dissertation. I can say, hey, I'm reading this document by Vatican II. Can you give me bullet points of what it specifically talks about? Give me the meat, right? And then I just have that there, and I just type in, and I don't type in word for word, but I could take that and I can fluff it. I can add half a paragraph and then add this one line of information, and then it's not going to be AI generated, right? But what happened to all that while I was reading that article or that book? Maybe I was at the park reading, maybe I took some time. I had to sacrifice some time playing outside to be able to read it. So now I'm learning what sacrifice is about, even though it's something minuscule, that sacrifice of playing outside, because I can have more time to do so. But I at least still don't forget what the concept of sacrifice is. I struggled through it. I don't forget what struggle actually is. There were maybe I mistranslated and I typed up 2-3 paragraphs and I'm like, oh, I misunderstood that line. Well, that's happened to us. And I go back through and now I know maybe that taught me to reread certain things. Maybe it teaches me patience, where all these things start going. I remember, just to go back, when dial-up, you remember dial-up internet? And it was beep, 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 and it makes all that noise.
Oh, yeah.
And then it finally has the connection. You're like, yeah, okay, we're online now, And then when the transfer happened over to just like, I don't know, what do they even call it? Just call it internet now. I mean, high speed internet.
Yeah.
And they offered like different things, and it was all of a sudden like you just open up the computer and you click the web browser and it's on.
Yeah.
And now we've noticed like slowly that patience has run out. There is no such thing no longer as patience. The attention span is gone. Patience is gone. So, but use it, but also know its limits. And even if you don't know its limits, limit your use of it in certain things. Don't let the human experience and human interaction be overtaken by it.
Like being intentional about doing, putting our feet back on the ground, going out and touching grass and like looking at the sun, hanging out with people, taking a walk, things like very human things. I think the more digitized our society gets, the more we have to insist on intentionally doing those things, Otherwise, it's easy to get wrapped up in and waste whole days just on screens, right?
And we miss God's creation. We miss the beauty that's around us.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool, man. It was really nice having you on, bro.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was actually really cool.
Yeah.
It was a nice discussion. I like it, especially since it's something that, like you said, it's something in the beginning.
We'll pray against the AI apocalypse.
Yeah. Yeah, Terminator. Or iRobot.
iRobot.
Yeah, iRobot.